Let's run through the specs really quick. I know you know them, but I want to talk about them a little bit more for a minute. 24.2 megapixel BSI sensor. That's bringing the quality of that sensor right on up into 5D4 territory, into, I would say, D850 territory because of the low light performance. You're not getting the pixel count as the R3, the D850, the 5D Mark IV, not even the 6D Mark II. But what it's looking like so far is that the ISO performance out of here, especially in video, but even if you like downsample your photos, is going to be rivaling that of the A7S2, A7S, A7S2. And what that means is that you can have an actually hybrid full frame camera to shoot low light video with, that you can also turn around and take fantastic stills with, that Sony claims gets about 15 stops of dynamic range. I would say that it's probably closer to 13, 14, because that's about the drop that you need to expect from what manufacturers are saying. But the other huge thing about this sensor is that it's ISO invariant. So the way I like to shoot is I like to say, okay, I'm going to shoot at ISO 100 and then, or whatever, and bring up the shadows and crush the highlights so that you can see everything a little bit better. And I'm going to emphasize the subject through depth of field and not through the light, through the exposure. That's just what I prefer to do. I know there are lots of preferences out there, but an ISO invariant sensor means that you can get 3, 4, 5, 6 stops to play with when you're raising shadows. So if you need to do that, right? If you're shooting, I don't know, a backlit cliff face at sunrise, and you really need to be able to pull those shadows back, you'll be able to. That's a really nice thing about this sensor. The 693 autofocus points, while we have seen from DP Review that there will be some issues with those with heavily backlit subjects, I don't think that there are enough backlit subjects, unless you're going to artificially create that environment, to cause that to be an issue. You can almost always change the way that the subject is oriented so that it's not backlit, so that's not an issue that you have to deal with, and you're probably mostly going to see that if you're going to be a pixel peeper in the first place. So I'd recommend that you're not a pixel peeper in the first place. The other great thing about that is that we're seeing AF performance that is so fantastically consistent across Sony's full-frame product line right now. We've seen fantastic AF performance in the Alpha 6000 series cameras. This is a whole nother ballgame. I can't wait to see what Sony puts together for their next APS-C camera, because especially if it's not a budget option, especially if it's like an Alpha 6700, something like that, 7000, whatever, because it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be so consistent across that line, and this is so consistent across that line. You can get the same AF performance very nearly, if not exactly, that you're getting out of the A9 and the A7R3. These are devices that are so professionally thought out for professionals, right? So you can have an A7R3 as your primary camera and an A7 III as your B cam and not have different performance, not have a different button layout. You're going to have the 2 card slots on the both of them. You're going to have a huge ISO range on the both of them. So you're going to be able to manage to use both as if they were the same camera. You're going to be able to use these devices professionally, even though this is a basic entry-level model, quote unquote. Right? You're going to use it as a professional device because that's what it's intended, that's what the body design screams at you, that's what the capability is yelling at you. So that's really nice as well. The 10 FPS mechanical shutter, by the way, just as fast as the 7D Mark II, so that's a big deal. It's faster than the 5D Mark IV, faster than the A7R III, faster than the D850, it's faster than the Fuji X-H1, it's faster than basically most everything out there right now. And so there are very few, it's flagship APS-C options, flagship smaller sensor options rather, that have faster shutters. A lot of those are still electronic though too, so be wary of that. But what we're getting in terms of the shutter, the frame rate, we're not getting an actuation. So we're seeing 200,000, 300,000 shutter actuations expectation lifespan on that. You'll be able to use electronic, but that is also putting another highly professional feature into your basic entry-level body. what this is going to look like for something like an Alpha 7000, 6700. It's going to be amazing, in my opinion. The IBIS is a little bit less good. I think that what we're seeing out of this, like I was getting into a minute ago, is that for more users, this is unlocking, if you will, a much higher potential to be creative and to express creativity and to capture moments and to capture memories than any other option on the table for the money, right? So your ISO 204,800, while you might not use it to that level, because of this sensor being BSI, because it's fantastic in low light, because you got full frame 4K, because you got 10 FPS mechanical shutter, you're going to be able to capture everything. And that's just going to be how it is. And it's going to all look really, really nice. One of the other big things is that you look at a model like the A7 III and you're going to say, okay, the A7, the A7 II had some compromises between them and the Rs and the Ss of the world, right? What we're not seeing is those compromises on the A7 III. The reason why we're not seeing those compromises is not because Sony is magnanimous and because Sony thinks that they can win a huge brand equity point over everybody else, although that's what they're doing. What they're doing is they're responding to trends in the market. So fewer units of cameras are being sold around the world, period. Lenses, camera bodies, non-interchangeable lens cameras, all those sales numbers, units shipped, produced, shipped, those are all down. What isn't down is the dollars. The reason why the dollars aren't down, the reason why they're able to not be down, is because companies like Sony, Canon does this in a really destructive way where they cripple devices. Sony is instead saying, we're going to put everything into this, just like we've done the A9, the A7R III, and probably the A7S III. And because we're using the same components in all of these, excepting the sensor and the IBIS thing, I don't know what to call that, in the A7 III, and they're using a cheaper one that they've used previously. So again, cost saving there. They're saving because they're able to produce those parts in greater bulk. And because of that, they're going to have a model that will have greater longevity. They're going to have a model that will keep making money for them, so they're going to keep investing in it, so that users for many more years down the line will still be able to be confident in investment in Sony, whereas Canon, by segmenting their market to hell, is doing a lot to destroy the value proposition that a camera is bringing to the table in an option like the 4000D. And by segmenting so hard, they're also not giving users long-term confidence that they'll be able to stand up against other options that are giving consumers more. So in that respect, Sony is being very, very intelligent. I think that's a huge thing to remember when you're thinking about the A7 III, is that this is an option that will last forever and be a fantastic camera for the next 5 years. And it's also a statement by Sony saying, we will be around for the next 5 years, plus, because of our product strategy. Sony's been making a lot of statements lately. I think one of the really big ones is that they're saying that everything that we're going to be making from here on out is without compromise. That's what the A7 III says to me. When we see a new entry-level APS-C option, I'm going to be very interested to see what their take on entry-level is going to be. I think something like an Alpha 6700, Alpha 7000, that's going to be very interesting to see what they're going to call flagship APS-C option as well. I think we have to expect a lot out of it because we're not seeing compromises out of Sony right now, and the A7 III is a perfect manifestation of that. If you've been waffling, if you've been wanting a new camera, if you've got $2,000 to burn on imaging, I would highly recommend the A7 III. Please look for links in the description down below, Amazon affiliate links, to go check that out with. I really don't have enough positive things to say about this camera. I don't presently have the financial flexibility to go after it, but as soon as I do, I will be, because this is the most compelling consumer camera that I've seen. It outperforms the 5D4, the D850, the A7R III for the money. It outperforms the 60 Mark II, the D750. It outperforms, in my opinion, most everything that Olympus makes. It outperforms most everything that Panasonic makes because it's also full frame. It outperforms most of what Fuji's making with the exception of the X-H1. So I could not be more enthusiastic about this camera. I am so looking forward to getting some hands-on time, and I'm so looking forward to having the opportunity to purchase one. So thank you very much for your time and for your attention in this video. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.